Okay, we'll get started shortly. So there's some questions. If you just want to type your questions up, or type them, or write them, probably, for the panel I'm going to bring on in a moment, that will be great. And I think without further ado, let's invite the panel to the stage. Can we welcome them with a big round of applause, please? So,
you go first.
Guy, Kathryn, if you want to take your place on the stage. Judging by the round of applause, you've got a tough crowd. So, just before we get started, did anyone hear that music in terms of where that was from, or any of the audio that was used in that music? Oh, I'm going to give you a mic, sorry. I went to one of these once and somebody had a hearing aid in the session, and they said, can you please do me a favour, can you make sure everyone uses a mic when the audience talk? Because when people say, oh, I've got a booming voice, my hearing aid doesn't pick it up, so it's one of my things, I'm afraid. So we'll get you a mic, and then you're going to help me out. So the question was, what's that piece of music that we heard? Or
it's called Go. It's by an outfit called Public Service Broadcasting.
He knows his music.
And it's all about the Apollo 11 landing.
It is. It's about the Apollo landing, and he used the sounds and the recordings from the control station before they launched. Who here in the room has been impacted on some of the technology that NASA have used? It's an audience participation a little bit, so hands down if you haven't, hands up if you have. Okay, all right. But this is a freight conversation. Yes, we're in an infrastructure show mainly, so what we're doing talking about freight. Who here has been influenced by freight, or is a passenger of freight? No, I think that's slightly about the same as NASA. I think you all have been impacted. Who goes to a supermarket? Who wears clothes? We are recording this, so and it's also might get written up in the magazine as well, so hopefully they won't say that, yes, the host asked if anyone wears clothes. We all have products delivered to us. Majority of those products will come in some way through rail freight. It's one of the smallest things that we understand. So why are we here? Why am I here? My name's Steve Naybour, I'm a civil engineer. I was asked to do a brilliant thing where I go around different freight organisations and customers and understand about freight, because I don't know a lot about freight. However, my panel do. Let's start with the introductions. Ladies first.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, it's lovely to see you all. My name's Kathryn Oldale. I'm Head of Commercial Development for DB Cargo, one of the larger rail freight operators in the UK, and also European as well, part of a huge European network of organisations.
My turn. Guy Bates, I'm Network Rail's Head of Freight Development.
Right, we've got some questions for you, but this is not just a questioning, well, I'm just asking the audience, sorry, the panel questions. We're also going to turn this into a little bit of a session between ourselves as well to learn more. And so I've got some questions for the audience as well. And the questions for the audience are in this box, and the questions for the panel are in the box in the table. I've done that so I don't get confused, so I don't start asking the wrong questions. So are you up for that? Yeah. Okay, all right.
Aren't you supposed to ask them to say it louder?
Yeah, thank you to the 2 people in the audience that are up for this. Okay.
Are you up for it?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see you're up for it. It's good. It's good. Right. So let's go for our first question. And just to make sure this is not rigged, I'm not going to say Mr. Haynes knew his questions and he knew what was coming in the order. My favourite bit was when he said, "Oh, you're going to ask me that question next." So to do that, can you just say that these questions are randomly placed? That's the piece of paper to make sure I know which ones the speaking questions are. Pick a random question, and then let's ask the panel. If I give you my mic.
Testing. So rail reform is gathering pace with legislation for GBR expected to be presented to Parliament in the autumn. What are the key opportunities and challenges rail reform presents to rail freight operators and customers?
Would you like me to start?
You can start, Kathryn.
Wonderful, thank you. Rail reform. It's presents a huge opportunity. That reforming the railways in the UK is an absolute no-brainer. It has to be done, and I don't think there's anybody, and I hope there's nobody sat in this sweltering hot tent with us that would disagree with that. But the really important thing is we get a really good deal for freight out of it. And as it stands, I think there's a lot of nervousness in our sector. So whilst we agree that wholesale reform is entirely the right thing to do, there is a little bit of nervousness amongst us. Things like capacity, things like access, things like charges. We're huge investors in the network. We are, as our customers are. We're huge investors in our assets, in our people, in our sites. We invest millions of pounds in rolling stock, being able to move commodity for our customers from point A to point B every single day. And what we need is that certainty of access to the network to continue. We need the charges to be fair and proportionate. We need a really strong regulator. And one of the things that we've been quite vocal about is the role of the ORR, or the ORR space going forward. So how are we going to be regulated? How are we going to ensure that we have fair access to the network, fair charges, and we can carry on continuing moving our customers' goods every single day as we do at this point in time, because we don't want a worse deal for freight than we have today. I think that the benefits are there in terms of working more closely with Great British Railways, working more closely with departments and with Network Rail. I don't think anybody thinks that reform is a bad thing, but there is some nervousness about just making sure that we are protected going forward in terms of access and performance, making sure that Schedule 8, and I don't know if anybody knows what Schedule 8 is, but that's our performance regime for the railways. So when there are things that impact us as operators, we are fairly compensated, and it also penalises poor performance as well.
Yeah, well, I can't disagree with any of that. I think the couple of things that I would point to are that it's an opportunity for a better coordination with one entity being responsible for the definition of the passenger service, what it's going to amount to, how busy it is, and at the same time will also have a responsibility within its construction, within the bill, to promote rail freight. And so therefore, we will hopefully have better mechanisms to be able to deal with capacity conflicts between passenger services and freight. And you'll be able to take a better, more objective view as to the best value for a particular path on the network. Is it better off supporting British industry, or is it better off moving 3 people who could have probably waited for the next train? So that's the thing I'm looking forward to. Plus, as well, protections for our land and our estate, which is critical to growing rail freight. And also a better mechanism for long-term access rights for operators. So if they're investing millions of pounds in new sites, facilities and kit, they know they're going to be able to run their trains for the next 15, 20 years.
Thank you, Guy. Okay, cue the music. Remember, audience, panel. Who's going to go with the first question? You, sir. You look really interested. No, that's again, then they can help me realise which one's the audience question. Is this? Okay, it's a tricky box. Okay, so the audience question you're going to read out for me is...
As we move into the summer holiday season, do you know how many short-haul or long-haul flights will be fuelled by just one aviation fuel freight train?
So if the panel could just talk to me about the aviation trains carrying fuel,
yeah.
And then the audience are going to have a guess at how many flights, long or short haul, we're prepared with both answers, it provides one single train. So
I haven't been able to Google the fuel consumption of a 747, so I'm not sure what the rate of use is. But we do have, I think it's somewhere in the order of 3 trains a day from Isle of Grain to Colnbrook, which is a avgas traffic.
So those 3 trains a day
are big.
How many flights, long haul, short haul, do we think one train provides? This is the audience participation bit. Come on, shout out some numbers.
And there's some sour bears for whoever gets it right. Not that we know the answer.
Or jelly beans.
Anyone who gives a number has effectively got it right. Or have you got the answer?
I've got the answer.
Okay.
So what have we had so far, sorry? 100 short or long haul? Okay, we've got 100 long haul for one train. Okay. Anyone else? 1,000 short, one train, fuel. Okay. Your world's a bit high at the moment. You do that on purpose. 700 short-haul flights or 39 long-haul flights is the amount of fuel on one of these trains, and we've got 3 of those trains running every day.
Yep.
And if that train doesn't get to Heathrow, imagine the impact of that. So, did that work? Not sure, but we'll keep going. Panel question number 2. I'm going to pick this out. Panel question number 2. Looking to the future, where do you consider the greatest opportunities lie for rail freight? What new markets are emerging that perhaps haven't previously been considered as opportunities for rail freight? We went ladies first last time. If that's okay, we'll go with Guy.
Yeah, sure. I think the single biggest opportunity for rail freight is a significant expansion of what we call domestic intermodal. Intermodal is anything that gets lifted on and off and can travel on a truck or a train or a ship. Domestic intermodal is traffic that runs from an inland location to another inland location. Probably typified best by the Tesco train, bog rolls, baked beans, clothes, that kind of stuff, fizzy pop and crisps. That traffic, we have barely single-digit market share currently in the UK. That is the biggest area of potential growth. Anglo-Scottish axis, for instance, down to the southwest, it's largely limited by the number of terminals we have. There are lots of places in the country that you can't actually get trains to, but people do live there and they wipe their bottoms and eat baked beans and wear clothes, to allude to your point earlier on. So massive opportunity there. Other sectors that are new and exciting, carbon capture. When you liquefy carbon, it works very well by rail in tank tainers or bulk tankers. And there are significant places that you can put it off the northeast coast where we took all the oil out, and moving that from incinerators and other places that are able to capture carbon because they get a carbon credit benefit for doing that, put it onto rail, long haul, easily moved. The volumes involved are too significant for road. You'd have thousands and thousands of lorries to do it, and nobody's in the mood for building pipelines around the country at the moment, so rail has an opportunity to play in that space. So that's 2, I think, are quite interesting opportunities. Kathryn, you run trains, so you tell us.
Completely agree. So we're not a nation of huge manufacturers. We don't have loads of brand new stuff coming to be built. But the easiest thing for us in terms of modal shift will be things that are moving on the roads already today. So containers full of goods, like Guy articulated, switching that from road onto rail. So domestic containerised goods has to be the biggest opportunity for rail freight in the UK. It's already being made. It's already being moved. We just need to take it off the road and onto rail. Carbon capture, carbon storage, virtual pipeline for carbon is a no-brainer. We can do it. It's done in Europe. Carbon can be transported in ISO tanks. The technology is there. We need to stop looking at drilling down and creating these pipelines and look at virtual pipeline, storing it, moving it, containerising it, moving it from point A to point B without unnecessarily spending billions of pounds on brand new infrastructure. So sustainability, in terms of carbon, in terms of hydrogen, new fuel sources, new fuel production, manufacture, movement, storage, is a massive opportunity for rail freight. And the third one that I'm going to touch on that I'm really surprised Guy didn't touch upon was the thing that we were talking about earlier this week on international rail freight. So all those containers that are coming into the UK, all those lorries that are stuck at the borders, all the lorries that are clogging up the M25 can go on a train through the tunnel into Barking. So international rail freight is a huge opportunity for our not just for our country, but for our sector as well.
One of the things on the Andrew Haynes conversation earlier was whether we're being ambitious enough with our rail freight and driving it. Mm-hmm. Guy, you were shaking your head then.
No, I read somewhere in the blurb that we've got an ambitious target of 8% growth in this control period. I think if you stand still, you get 8%.
You've read that? You've read the...
Yeah, I did. I had a quick flick at it. I jumbled them up. That's why you can't find them.
Question on that.
All right.
Linked smoothly, not smoothly at all. There was a target to hit 8% freight growth in CP7, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. And the question is, what percentage do you think we've achieved that? In here somewhere, Ian, if you can find that one. I'll take that one out, because that's the question I'd like to ask the audience. Oh, we need some music with the audience question. Here you go. Okay. Can anyone name that music? 18, brilliant. Very quick, very good. Next time we have a pub quiz, I know who to ring up. So what percentage of rail growth do you think we've actually achieved? Remember, it was 8% target so far in CP7. I'll read the official quote. Network Rail's growth target for rail freight in control period 7 is 7.5%. I'll go 8% on just to keep the math simple. How do you think it's going? What percentage do you think we've hit so far in CP7? Thank you very much for contributing. 5, 10. I feel like I'm on bargain hunt. Any other numbers? I think we're 10 versus 8, okay? 23, wow, okay. Okay, you've all gone high again. So far, 5 is the correct answer, sir. Who's shouted out 5? Let's see, Mark Khan's not hearing it, was I?
Safety first.
Oh, my throw, sorry. Congratulations. So 5% has been achieved so far into CP7, which is a good result, isn't it? Keep going, though.
Yeah.
Do you want another question?
Go on.
All right, let's go for another panel question.
Do we want to talk about how many trains that is?
You can do.
Go on, then I will. So we run about 600 freights a day on our network. That's 300 round trips, because freight trains go one place and they come back again to get home for the evening. And 7 or 8%, 8 for freight in CP7 equates to about another 25 circulations a day, something like that. So it's about another Felixstowe, to put it in context.
Just before I ask this next question, can you just shout out the companies in the room, just so we can get an understanding of who's in the room? Just. Thank you. You're making me read your badge. Belden, brilliant. Okay, so this question is, what do you think, to the panel, what do you think are the greatest misconceptions and misunderstandings about rail freight?
Do you want me to take that, Steve? Thank you. I think a lot of people think that we're slow, that we're dirty, we're quite sluggish, we're difficult to deal with, it's difficult to run a train. None of this is true, by the way. I think, in terms of misconceptions, one of the biggest things that I think, there are 2 areas I think we have a huge opportunity for on misconception and breaking down barriers. One is on public perception, on changing consumer awareness of the products that they're purchasing, how those products are being moved, and looking at the wider sustainability benefits of rail freight. So I think we've got a big job to do in terms of public perception. So if wider public knew that one train is up to 129 HGVs off the road every time you're sat on the M25, the M6, the M1, the A1, name any other particular road, and you see all those HGVs round you, as a general consumer, as a member of the great British public, I think you'd all agree that all of those containers, all of those lorries are better off on rail rather than on road, saving air quality, congestion, pothole damage. You won't be spending billions on road infrastructure, you could spend all that on rail and creating better capacity and better connections. That's one misconception for me. The other one, and it's something that is quite close to my heart, is about future skills, future employability, what we're like as a sector, and making our sector attractive for new talent coming into it. So if you look at the roles that we have today, they're fundamentally different to what we were recruiting for 6 months ago and 12 months ago, and they're very different to what we'll be recruiting for in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. We're having a much bigger focus on tech, on AI, on data, on engineering skills. So I think one of the misconceptions is that we are slow, we are dirty, it's full of men, it's full of people with oily rags wandering up and down, and whilst yes, in some of our workshops that is the case, and I won't say that it isn't, we are moving vastly away from that. So great new technologies like ERTMS are game-changing our sector. They're making it radically different, and we're looking for a whole new workforce of completely different skills, and that's one thing that I'd like to change as well.
Kathryn, go.
Yeah, I think it's the flexibility side of it. If you're talking to end users and customers who haven't used rail, they have a very different perception of rail. Our best advocates are those who do use rail, and people have also heard of, Nestle, Tesco, people like that, who actually regard rail as more reliable than road, more useful than road, because they get what it's actually all about. It's not a truck. It will never do exactly the same as a truck, but it does a lot of other stuff that isn't a truck, if you like. It's a conveyor belt. You pop it on one end and it magically picks up at the other end, and you haven't flogged your vehicles all the way up and down the motorway network and given your blokes 12-hour days.
And when you said more flexible, what do you mean by it's more, customers see it as more flexible? What does that mean?
Well, because people always think a lorry's flexible because you can ring up and get it within an hour. At a train, probably, you wouldn't ring up DB and get a train within an hour, but you could certainly have it within 24 hours. A lot of people think you've got to wait 12 months to get into the timetable. Not the case. You can do short-term planning, that kind of stuff. So it can be very responsive, but it's very responsive for significant amounts of stuff to be moved efficiently and quickly from one place to another. And also on the slow thing, most freights are capable these days of 75 miles an hour. We've got trials for faster than that. If you're on a truck, you're generally limited to 56, and some organisations limit their trucks to less than that to save fuel. And that's when you're moving, it's not when you're stuck in a traffic jam like I was getting up here today. So I wish 129 of the trucks hadn't been in front of me and had been on a train instead.
And also, was it this week or last week you got a new corridor that's opened up first for freight?
East-West Rail?
Yeah,
First
East-West
train
Rail's
on that,
first
yeah.
traffic is freight into brand new facility at Northampton Gateway. Yeah, absolutely.
They hadn't been prepped for that, so they did quite well, didn't they? Yeah, do you want to ask a question?
A supplementary on that, if I could, Damon Campbell from SCT Rail in Australia. So many common issues in terms of modal shift and road versus rail that I'm hearing up here as well. One of the issues we've got back home as an industry is we're completely outspent and outlobbied by the road sector constantly, and any policy change that even looks like it's pro-rail freight gets shouted down before it, which in part the rail industry back home has some culpability over. But would welcome some comment up here about the sort of the relative power of the two lobby groups with government.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm sure Kathryn would share this, it is not a road versus rail discussion. You will generally use a lorry for most of the traffics we run to either do the initial collection or the final delivery. And it's about that intermodal and multimodal use, making the best use of both things. So the best flows we have are where they use a train for the long haul, and then you have an electric truck to do the final delivery. There are obviously smaller owner-operators who don't have the scale of operation to think about rail, and they do lobby hard. And there's always more spent on road improvements to benefit HGVs than there is in rail freight. We haven't had any significant spend for about 5 years or so now on rail freight enhancements. Fuel duty is frozen, track access charges go up, so you have to work even harder to keep traffic on rail. But so remarkably similar to where you're from. I think the primary difference is you're probably still moving more coal than we do. We won't go into that. And I think you probably run slightly longer trains than we do, but we'll get there.
I agree, road lobbyists here have a very strong voice, but what I would say is that over the past years, particularly since COVID, we've worked really closely as a sector. So myself and our competitor organisations have worked very strongly, very closely to lobby for commonalities. So in the past 2 years, we've seen a real shift, particularly with governments and with policymakers and indeed within Network Rail, about prioritising and promoting freight. And for the first time, we now have a rail freight growth target. So one was set by the UK government, Network Rail have their own for each control period. So that's never happened before. So I think that we're on the periphery of doing far better things together, but we are using one voice to take on. And we're not taking on road, but we need to work more closely with road, because as Guy says, it's about better use of assets, it's about rail and road working together for the better outcome for the customer.
And there is an enormous building interest from potential end users, manufacturers, retailers, to be able to tick the sustainability box. Rail is a very quick way of getting that. Even if you've got a diesel on the point, you're still 75% less CO2 per tonne mile. So it allows them to use their road fleet far more effectively if they're operating at that kind of scale.
Okay, thank you for the question. We've got a short amount of time to answer another audience question. What do you think the current, we've spoken about the 5% growth so far, what do you think the largest growth markets are for rail freight is the question for the audience. What are these things that we're now moving more of than we ever have before? You can shout them out. Boxes. Containers? Okay, we'll come to containers in a minute. Waste. Give me...
Waste?
Waste and aggregates. So the answer, you guys all know, is biomass. Just talk about biomass, and then the second answer, in terms of volume of stuff that we're moving, is multimodal. Just talk about what those two things are.
Well, the biomass is an interesting answer. Certainly we're moving more biomass than we were 10 years ago because we were burning coal, not biomass. But biomass was going to be a massive promising commodity, but the government pulled the subsidies, so you only got 2 generators in the UK. So I think the other answers are really interesting. The 2 biggest commodities in this country on rail, on freight, are intermodal, which is maritime predominantly, and domestic intermodal, and then bulk construction. Mm-hmm. The geology of where stuff is in the ground in this country and the geography is where it's needed mean that rail is a winning combination for getting vast tons of stuff from a quarry out in the middle of nowhere into a centre of a city where it can then become concrete and be used. So your boring fact for the next time you're at a party and you're going to get relegated to the kitchen for this one is that when they did the continuous pour on the Shard near London Bridge in the centre of London, all of that concrete came through Battersea Terminal. Mm-hmm. And we had to make sure all the trains ran properly over a bank holiday to actually get the stuff in so that the pour could continue, because you can't stop pouring concrete when you're doing a continuous pour on the centre of a tunnel.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question for yourselves. We hear a lot about development of electric vehicles, which could impact on the sustainability advantages of rail freight. What do the panel members believe will be the impact of electrical vehicles on rail freight?
I'll let Kathryn get a word in edgeways, but I see it as broadly positive. You've got a payload disadvantage and a range disadvantage with electric trucks, but they are absolutely fantastic for doing collection and delivery haulage at the far end of a journey.
I don't want this to come back and bite me, but I'm not duly concerned about it. I think any kind of movement in terms of transport into a cleaner, greener solution is a good thing. I think rail intrinsically is the greenest form of, greenest way to move bulk product today, even with a diesel loco on the front of it. But if you can look at a low carbon traction solution for the rail haulage and an electric vehicle for first and final mile, and then you look at the really cool things that we're doing at Cricklewood in terms of our net zero terminals plans. We have the first net zero rail terminal in the UK, and you look at an end-to-end net zero carbon solution. I think that's really cool.
The other thing is, from a congestion perspective, doesn't matter whether they're electric trucks or diesel trucks, you still need to be enhancing your road network to cope with an ever-increasing number of them.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question of the audience, and then if there's any other audience questions, then let me know. Would you mind reading that out for me?
We're not going to give the full name of characters in this programme, are we?
Name some rail freight operators in the UK.
We'll go for another question. Sorry, that was not a good one.
Oh, hang on.
Come on, Guy. It's not hard.
What is the one key environmental benefit of rail freight compared to road?
For the audience, I can't believe anyone who doesn't know that answer.
It's the amount of weight that you carry over the distance.
Very good answer. Very good answer. Thank you. Does anyone in the audience want to ask a question before I go back to the audience questions? Yes.
Thank you. I'm really interested in devolution and what you think the opportunities and challenges are from it, with more powers going to the now strategic authorities, and obviously you've got Scotland and Wales. Because, for example, you've got a situation up in Manchester where the mayor would actually like to get rail freight off the railway, but then you've also got mayors that want to shift traffic off of the roads in their areas, and that opportunity for that switching that last mile. So I'm really interested to sort of understand the thinking on that.
I'm not sure I can say what I feel about that. So I'll let Kathryn.
Thanks, Guy. I'll say it for us. Devolution so far, in terms of everything that we've seen with certain mayoral regions, presents me with a huge challenge. I don't see an awful lot of opportunity. I have an awful lot of concern about it. And as a national, non-publicly funded operator, I do not have enough people to start fighting and championing for more rail freight for the right thing in each region. I don't have it. So we're going to have to work much harder as an industry, with our affiliated bodies, with our trade bodies, to start hoping that common sense prevails, that we see a greater modal shift, and where we see devolution, we have decision makers recognising the benefit to us as consumers, to us as road users, to the economy and to the environment of modal shift from road onto rail. Do you have anything to add to that, Guy?
That's a great answer.
You're welcome.
As an engineer, I need to build stuff in a big city, and I need to get those materials into that big city. So we even have our infrastructure in cities growing to a point where we're, able to offer new big buildings, new shops, new whatever, because we can build, or we decide we can't move things into the city, and you can't have the ideal situation of both. How we get those things into the city, what's the best way to move things in?
Yeah.
That's an easy question for me.
Yep.
As an engineer. Okay. Okay, we've talked about sustainability as a benefit for rail freight. Can the panel outline the other benefits of rail freight?
I could give you an example. Jaguar Land Rover are big proponents of rail freight. It allows them to get product from their factories to ports for export easily. It means they don't have to have massive compounds taking up production space on their sites, so they're able to just put stuff on a train, get it down to Southampton, get it on a ship, and away it goes. So I think there are production efficiencies with rail that rail freight enables. It allows a continuous, uninterrupted through flow of product.
We're faster, we're safer, it's easier to move large amounts of product at any given time. I'm biased, it's an absolute, but you look at the numbers, you look at the stats, look at the data, it's an absolute no-brainer. But the biggest thing going for our sector at this point in time is its sustainability benefits. So we are faster, we are cleaner, we are greener. We have great economic benefits to UK PLC, but at the heart of it, 76% less carbon emissions running with rail over road. One train is 129 HGVs off the road. Can't move away from that.
Watch Guy's face now, because he doesn't know what I'm about to ask him. As an engineer, I didn't understand what that meant in terms of rail freight is faster, until I saw what the team are doing in terms of moving medical equipment or farming equipment on old passenger stock and travelling at very high speed. So just talk about that, what that service is providing.
Yeah, well, there's two different elements to what we've at the moment kind of dubbed as a working title express freight, and so that's stuff that's running in cascaded passenger stock, no seats, no windows, a bit like a football special from the 70s, and you put your roll cages on there, and then it can run at 110 miles an hour from, in this instance, from Birmingham International up to a site near Glasgow. It gives an unbeatable transit time. It's virtually air freight kind of transit times. And yeah, it's a good area of opportunity for rail. The medical stuff is what we call parcels on trains, where there are a couple of organisations now who've designed some secure carriage kind of bags, if you like, that are able to be put on a train, arrive at the other end, and then they go off, and they're doing medical testing from some hospital in Nottinghamshire somewhere, I could have revised this better, couldn't I, down to labs in London, and people are getting their cancer results the same day, which they didn't before. So, and you can move live organs on trains as well.
Audience question time. We're working well now as a team. Oh no, he's pulling me the Muppets. Oh God, here we go. Right, so audience, how many tons do we think are carried by rail each year? I know you've been going big, haven't you, Francis, so far? So let's see how you get on with this one. Thank you very much for that musical choice. Thank you.
Muppets.
So, how many tons do we carry on the rail system every year as rail freight? Well, I don't remember the answer to this one, but I now can see it. Okay, come on, give me an answer.
120,000.
Thank you so much. 120,000. 20 million tons, okay. Do I hear higher? 80 million. Do I hear a lot higher?
500 million.
Do I hear a lot higher? 200 million. Let's go into the billions, don't go trillions. 16.5 net kilometres of rail moved across Britain in the last 12 months? Okay, I might have just failed my GCSE physics because it's rail tonnes per kilometre, but 16.5 net tonnage moved in rail, which is massive, isn't it? Okay, you can now start to understand my journey as an engineer into rail freight and trying to understand more. Okay, let's go for another question for the panel, which are over here. Unless I've got an audience question, anyone wants to? Okay. Remember you can, Ian, could you just make sure if anyone's written down a question, if we can collect those up, if anyone wants to grab Ian's attention with those. We talked about the ambitious targets earlier for achieving rail freight growth. What do you think the main challenges are to achieving this, and what actions should be taken to address those challenges? So we talked earlier about the ambitious or not 8% target for growth. What are the main challenges that you're experiencing in your roles to achieving that?
Do you want me to take
Kathryn,
that
if you wanna go
first? Yeah, I'll take that first. I think the biggest thing, challenges at this point in time, are the markets. The markets are incredibly soft. Every sector that you look in, nobody's booming, nobody's doing incredibly well at this point in time. So if we're not buying things, if we're not manufacturing things, we're not importing things, we're not exporting things, we're not moving things. So we're incredibly closely linked to the state of the economy in the UK in terms of what we're purchasing, what we're making. So that is a big blocker. But as we talked about earlier, there are a huge amount of lorries on the roads every single day. Rail's market share of total transportation moved is about 9%. It's minute. There's an awful lot of opportunity there to go at. So I think general economics is one of the biggest barriers going forward. I think capacity could be a bit of an issue for us in terms of East Coast, West Line capacity. For their major arterial routes in the UK, they're already highly constrained. If we're looking at growing, we need more space to move on the network. So capacity will start to be an issue going forwards for us.
Yeah, no, I'd echo that. I think the other area capacity comes into it, and we alluded to it earlier on, is with railheads, terminals, facilities to actually get stuff on rail in the first place. I'm not sure whether there was a train service to Long Marsden. So, I don't know, most people probably drove, certainly past a lot of our vehicles on the way coming here. Train wasn't an option. If you're in the southwest and you're producing something that goes into the retailer's supply chain, train's not an option at the moment. It's all about getting the facilities in place and the paths to serve those facilities to facilitate growth. Bit too many F's in that. But you're quite right, Kathryn, the market is fairly flat at the moment. Construction sector is in a bit of a dip, certainly in the London area. I think there's a tall buildings regulation which has just shut off concrete at the moment because no one can work out how to do them. When the economy gets back on its feet, we'll see more traffic.
Okay, more traffic. I'm going to ask the last audience question. So, what music could go in? Oh, okay, all right. Have I annoyed you in some way? Okay, right, the last question is, how many freight trains run in a single day in the UK?
Oh, I gave that one away already.
I think we said it earlier, didn't we?
Ka-ching!
So, you're listening, you get sweets. I think a few of you said 600 then, didn't you? Is it? There you go. Was it someone over here? Have you got sweets already? Have you come here purposely for the... Okay. Right, okay, last question for you. Unless there is any audience questions. What would you like to see? This is non-rehearsed as well, so watch this one, everyone. What would you like to see from the new Network Rail CEO coming in?
Okay. So we had a bit of a period of time where we talked about passenger first, which left a lot of our customers a bit kind of, okay, who are we, what second? I think if there's a discussion about it being customers, who are people who buy a ticket to go on a train, but they're also people who buy trains, then that's probably slightly more equitable. So if we can avoid any own goals from the comms department on that front, that'd be good.
I think an increased appreciation, recognition and understanding of the benefits of the rail freight sector, particularly in terms of parity with passengers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, parity with passengers.
Think freight rather than and freight.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you to Ian, who's done all the hard work in making this work. Please thank, in a traditional way, our panellists. And also credit to you as well. It's not easy coming to an infrastructure main show and kind of let's talk about freight. So well done for having the
Of Pandroll clips. I'm going to be straight back over their tent.
All right, have a great rest of the show, everyone, and stay safe. And thank you very much for coming along as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.